Right, 2014. I think this is the third video in this section. We'll see how we get on. So here we're looking at different training methods and how we would deal with particular training situations. So how would we deal with difficult customers? Which one out of the three there? Well, role play is easily the best when you're dealing with difficult customers. What a role play is it recreates real recreates real situations at work. So employees, I suppose they then practice communication skills and negotiation as well. Right, so that would get you two. Role play, it's the best way to upskill your staff there. So how to use the photocopier? Well, demonstration, just show somebody how to do it basically. You on the job training, or show them on the job how to do it, and then they can repeat. So really easy, 2 marks. Next question from list below. Which box is a feature of a public limited company, so a PLC? Right, well, they can sell shares on the stock exchange. A PLC can grow really large because it can sell shares, which creates finance for them to expand. But we don't need to do that, but it tells us a little bit more. Explain what is meant by incorporated. Well, remember that if it's incorporated, you have limited liability, and then you just go on and talk about separate legal identity. Right, separate legal identity. Remember, separate to this question, unincorporated have unlimited liability. Yeah, unlimited is an unincorporated, so incorporated has limited. The uns go together. There's no un there, so there's no un there. 2 factors may consider when locating its factory. Well, it's a car factory, so you would look at infrastructure. And the reason would be you need road, rail, air to get really quick and efficient access to raw materials. The other thing is labour. Well, source. So you want to locate somewhere where you have the skills needed to operate at high quality. So therefore you wouldn't have to, if your labour force is already trained, you would then not have to train your customers. So 4, 1, 2, reasons 3, 4 marks. Right, so then we're going to look at they are trying to find a new head of marketing. And this is the process they go through. So they get 200 applicants, they shortlist, they then have an interview. On the panel, there's some employees. They ask different questions to each of the 6, and then they use group activity as part of the selection process. They want to know whether or not the selection procedure is appropriate. I would start off with the fact that a person would just go straight in and say no, so that you don't believe it will result in employing the person described in the person specification, person spec. And then we need to look at, well, how do we go from here? Well, you need to refer to both advantages and disadvantages of this selection procedure. So let's look at the advantages first of how they do this. Right, well, I would say first plus is employees involved. The reason that's good is because it's good for morale and teamwork. Employees feel valued if they're part of selecting the person that's going to be working with them. I would say group activities is another plus that they go through here, and the reason for that is because it's the head of marketing, then they're going to have to be good at communication, and a group activity shows whether somebody's good at communication or not. I have to work write really quickly here. Then we look at disadvantages of this particular thing, and I would say the big disadvantage is 10 minutes interview. There is no way that you can get a clear idea of what somebody's strengths and weaknesses are in 10 minutes. You just can't grasp strengths and weaknesses in that shorter time. It's 10 minutes. By the time you've started, you've nearly finished. The next one I would say is the fact that everyone gets different questions. If they're different, then how is it fair? Well, it's not. And that's why I think ultimately these outweigh, and therefore I don't think it's a great process to follow. 6 marks. Right, next up, identify which method of communication is the most preferred. So most preferred, easy, 1 mark. Well, clearly 60% go with briefing at the start of the day. So make sure you pick up that. Choose one method of communication and explain one possible problem. So it's a problem with one of these. I'm going to go with notice board. And the fact that the reason why I think it was a problem is because not everyone stops to read. It's 2 marks, so that probably will get me enough, but just you could have put things like it's not, it isn't directed towards particular staff like an email would be. If you want someone to know something, you email just that person, whereas this, it's general and it goes out to everyone. So you don't know if the people who you want to see it have actually seen it. Again, 2 marks. Probably going off the page a bit here. Right, so given the developments in ICT, some employers change pattern of work. State and explain 2 advantages. Right, well, if they've become more flexible, one advantage is morale. If you let people work at different times, then you've shown that you're flexible. And when you give power to employees, then they feel better about the place of work. Another one is responding to demand. Responding to demand is just a posher way of saying that you might have orders at all times of the day. So if you're allowing for a change in patterns of work and letting people work from home, or letting people come in early and finish early, or come in late and finish late, you might end up having people working outside of the 9 to 5 hours. So maybe somebody comes in at 8 and leaves at 4, and then somebody else decides to come in at 10 and leave at 6. So then you've got a day where people are in from 8 till 6 compared to 9 till 5. So you are open for 2 extra hours, and that means you can respond to customers. Customer service could increase. Look at the next one. So it's a 4 marker. They've left you a lot of space, but we know that we're talking, we can split it up into 2 mark sections. Explain whether or not the data in figure 4 shows that they've been successful at motivating its employees. So we look at number 1 here, and then we look at number 2 here, and that gets us our 2 marks. So number 1, number of complaints. Well, they've gone down. So in 2011, they were about 2,500, and we have moved to 2013 where they are about 1,000. That's clear improvement, and there's been a year-on-year improvement. Every year it's gone down, so that's a positive. It's not. There's no spike there. We could then say productivity. And productivity is how much employees are getting out of the resources they have. So with the raw materials that are coming in, with the machinery they've got, the finance available, are they turning that into more products than they were in years previous? We can see that they are. So there's been an improvement from -2 in 2011 to in 2013 we've got about 2.5 positive. Again, you can see that the overall trend is up, although it does shallow out a little bit in here, just around there, but actually the overall trend is positive. So complaints go down, you're getting more out of your staff, productivity is increased, so basically they've won on both counts. Last one, extract from a newspaper. Transit Car Union has warned that further industrial action is inevitable as its members resist any reductions to their employment rights and standards. Evaluate possible effects of this information. Right, so we know that this is split in half. Again, possible effects. If the first one I'm going to look at is strike action equals a fall in productivity or total plant shutdown. If it's inevitable, it's going to happen basically. So we know that strike action produces that. It also produces a fall in morale, because basically, if people aren't at work, then the mood around work is one of you don't feel good about going to work when there's such hostility. So you're working in a hostile environment. Sorry, I'm getting a bit disjointed here. I'm quite tired. So strike action equals that. Another thing from the employee side is obviously it could equal no pay. Now, at the end of the day, they've got mortgages to pay, family at home, and therefore they start to feel as if there is anytime there is conflict between the business, so let's say management, and employees, then it's going to be a place where it's difficult to employ in the future. It's difficult to get new business, because I wouldn't go and order things from a company that is going into a period where they're fighting with their staff. You would want to trade with a stable company, and this company are not stable, so I wouldn't enter into business with them. So the effects: strike action, lower productivity, morale goes down, employees get no pay, there's conflict between the employees, and you might actually have to bring in ACAS. And you should be able to talk about how ACAS are an independent body that are brought in to resolve disputes. I would know about ACAS because they like it when you drop that in. Right, okay, done.